Okay, so today we're going to talk about a cinematic giant. We're going to explore how a film that so many people, and yeah, myself included, consider a modern masterpiece, Blade Runner 2049, somehow managed to build this perfect, incredible story and then just kind of fumbled at the finish line. Now, before we get into any of that, let's be super clear about one thing. This film is an extraordinary achievement. I mean, from Roger Deakins' Oscar-winning cinematography to that haunting score, this thing is a total sensory experience. It builds on the original's legacy and asks some really profound questions about who we are, what's real, and what it all means. And look, for almost all of its, 2 hours and 44 minutes, this film is basically perfect. It expands the world of the original in such a cool way, it deepens the lore, and it sets up a mystery that feels massive in scale, but also deeply, deeply personal. So, you have this central mystery, right? And it is set up so brilliantly. Kay, our Blade Runner, discovers the impossible. A replicant actually gave birth. And this one single fact, this bombshell, it threatens to just tear down the whole social order. And it sends Kay off on this incredibly dangerous journey to find the truth. Yeah, the whole setup is just flawless. And a huge part of that is how cheerfully it brings in all the key players, creating this tangled web of conflict that just feels so rich with possibility. So this perfect setup, it all really hinges on these characters. You've got Kay, our stoic hero on this existential quest. You've got Joy, his holographic companion who is, let's be honest, the heartbreaking, emotional core of this whole thing. And then you have the villains, the absolutely terrifying enforcer Love, and the real mastermind Neander Wallace, a guy who literally sees himself as a god. And this is the hook, right? This is what makes us lean in and get completely invested in Kay's journey. We are right there with him, piece by piece, as he starts to believe that he is the miracle child, the one who could change everything. The stakes, both emotionally and philosophically, they just could not be higher. But then the third act kicks in. And for all that incredible, masterful buildup, this is where a lot of people feel the film starts to lose its way. So yeah, that brings us to the big question we're tackling here. How does a film that gets so much right stumble, right at the finish line? What happened? Okay, so here's the core of the problem, right? The movie basically sidelines its most interesting conflict. After that absolutely devastating moment where love destroys joy, the story just pivots. It moves away from all those deep, heavy, ideological questions and veers right into a pretty standard action showdown. I mean, look at what we got. The big climax was Kay versus Love. And don't get me wrong, it's a visually stunning fight, absolutely. But it's a battle against an enforcer. The climax the entire movie seemed to be building towards, that was a showdown with Wallace, the ideologue, the true philosophical villain, whose terrifying vision is the real threat. So instead of this epic debate over the very soul of a species, we got a fist fight in the water. And you know what happens when you make a pivot like that? A bunch of major plot threads, things that were so carefully woven through the first two acts, they're just left dangling, unresolved. This pivot, it just creates all this buildup with zero payoff. Think about it. First, Wallace, the guy who started this whole mess, the big bad, he just disappears from the movie. His grand, horrifying plans are never even challenged. Second, Joy's death, which is this massive emotional gut punch, is immediately followed by an action scene, giving Kay almost no time to process it. And what about that whole replicant freedom movement we hear about? Poof, it's mentioned and then it's just gone.
So all of this leaves the focus entirely on Kay's personal journey. And while his story arc is incredibly powerful, here's the thing. It all happens in a world that is, fundamentally, exactly the same after he's gone.
Now, Kay's transformation itself, it's beautiful. And it's tragic. He goes from being this compliant tool of the system to believing he's the chosen one, to being absolutely crushed by the revelation that he's not special at all. But then, right in that moment of despair, he makes a choice to do something, something profoundly human. He sacrifices himself for someone else. But here's the catch. As powerful as Key's final act is, it really happens in a vacuum. He saves Deckard, which is huge, but Wallace's whole oppressive system, it's completely untouched. His sacrifice, as noble as it was, changes absolutely nothing about the brutal, oppressive world he lived in. It's this deeply personal victory that, for a lot of viewers, just feels like a much bigger defeat. So yeah, when you put it all together, what are you left with? It's just this feeling of anticlimax. The ending is this quiet, sad little whisper. Look, at the end of the day, the film asks these huge, vital questions, about freedom, slavery, what it means to be human, and then it just walks away from them. It swaps out a huge philosophical showdown for a physical one, and it leaves us with ambiguity instead of a real sense of closure. And man, this line really just captures that feeling perfectly. For a film that built such a massive, world-changing conflict, the ending felt like it pulled its biggest punch. It went with a whisper when the whole damn movie felt like it was building up to a massive roar. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Is a deeply personal win for just one character enough? Or does a truly satisfying ending need to actually change the world of the story? It really gets you thinking about what we want from our stories, And it's what makes the ending of Blade Runner 2049 so damn interesting to talk about.